Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to deploy Mattermost in an AirGap environment with Zarf. My name is Jason Van Breckel. I'm a unicorn engineer at Defense Unicorns. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my contact details are below. So today we're going to talk about what Mattermost is and why you might use it. We're going to show you how to put together Mattermost in an AirGap environment, create the Zarf.yaml file for Mattermost, and then deploy Mattermost into a Kubernetes environment. So you might ask yourself, why Mattermost? I know Defense Unicorns, I know they use GitHub and Slack, and that's true. But you may be in an environment where you can't use publicly accessible tools for doing your day-to-day work. So maybe you're the DoD, maybe you're NASA. So I first came across Mattermost working with Platform One. They use GitLab for their CI/CD, and they use Mattermost for their chat ops. So today, we're going to do the AirGap deployment with Zarf, deploy Mattermost into a Kubernetes cluster with Zarf. Our goal here is to get started. This is not a deep dive into the dependencies of Mattermost. We're going to get a basic setup in AirGap with Mattermost. So we'll have the Mattermost dependency set up. We're going to use the easiest path to get there. So we're not talking about high security. We're not talking about attestation or automation. Those are things that come later. This is just to get you started. So with that, let's get started. So at this point, you've already gone out to GitHub. You have the Zarf code base. So we have the Zarf examples. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a Kubernetes cluster up and running to test with, and then we'll install the PostgreSQLOperator. So I'm using, like I said, I'm using K3D. Feel free to use what you want. Just know you'll need an ingress controller as well. So we're going to create a cluster, and I just want to know how to name the cluster. Cluster create, and we'll call this our Mattermost cluster. And in a few seconds, we'll have a Kubernetes cluster up and running with an ingress already installed. That we'll be taking advantage of. All right, let's see if it's running. All right. Okay, so we can see our cluster is still coming up. We have things installed, for Helm, for metric server, for core DNS, and we can see here for traffic. So this is going to take a minute or so. Now that our cluster is up and running, let's initialize Zarf. You'll notice I sped that up a little bit. I'll do that here and there throughout the video, just to save you some time. Now that we have Kubernetes installed, we have Zarf initialized, we're ready to install our PostgreSQLOperator. We've navigated to our Zarf source code, go to examples, and our PostgreSQLOperator. We'll create our Zarf package. And we're going to use this exactly as is. We're not going to do anything special here. We're just going to use the out-of-the-box Zarf example because, again, this is just a getting started video. Okay, let's deploy it. Use something strong here, not something like this. And we're going to use the example DB because that'll be our database for Mattermost. Once this is installed, we'll navigate back to the example documentation so we know how to connect to the server and how to get the secret out so we can make our Postgres Secret for Mattermost. So we'll need a few things here. We're going to connect to PgAdmin, but we'll need how to get the password out so we can connect the server to PgAdmin. We'll also use that for our secret, as I mentioned before. We can get that from the Zarf documentation. So we'll use that to get our password. Let's take this apart, what we're actually doing here. First and foremost, we're going to do an echo. We're going to grab a secret called zarf.acid-zarf-test, credentials, Postgres, acid.zalan.do. So zalan.do makes one of the better Postgres operators available for Kubernetes. That's the one we're taking advantage of. We're grabbing the secret and grabbing the password, and then we're using base64 decode to get that. Oops. Oh, that's interesting. That actually gives us our database password. We're going to use that password for our secret for Postgres when we create the secret. If you peeked at the values file for the Postgres operator, you would have seen that the email is admin@test.dev, and the password is the password you created when you deployed this Postgres operator with Zarf into your cluster. Let's connect. So now we're going to connect the new server to PgAdmin just to make sure it's up and running. We'll connect now as soon as we save our password. We're going to require SSL. And it is the acid-zarf-test. The namespace name. .svc.cluster.local. Now, these are all default values for Kubernetes at svc.cluster.local. I have the service name, the namespace name, .svc.cluster.local. We know our username is Zarf. Let's grab that password we were going to use earlier. We'll save the password and connect. Just like that, we now have access to our Mattermost database, or the database we're going to use for Mattermost. We'll put it that way. Now that we have Postgres up and running, we've confirmed that it's running properly. Let's install MinIO. We're going to navigate to the MinIO directory. And again, just like Postgres operator, we're going to install the MinIO operator as is. We'll create the package, Zarf, package create. It will create the package. So we have the package created. Now let's deploy the MinIO package. Unlike the Postgres operator, here we have not just connect for the MinIO console, but the ability to get the password for the MinIO console. So we'll do that now. And we'll use this JWT to get into the MinIO console. Zarf connect MinIO. This will open up the MinIO console. Let's enter that token. Whoop. Every so often we get that new line on the end that we don't want. Okay, so now we have the MinIO console. We're going to create inside of this tenant a bucket. We'll call this Mattermost bucket. And we'll go ahead and edit this bucket and make it publicly accessible. And then we need a user. And we'll save that. So now that we have a user and a bucket and MinIO Setup, we're ready to set up our Mattermost deployment. We'll use the documentation from Mattermost to guide us in that process. So let's get started with that next. So we're back into our Mattermost documentation. We're ready to start putting everything together. I'm going to open a code window and we're going to work from code as we go. And let's track the things we'll need to create using all the different bits. So we know we'll need the Mattermost operator. We know that we'll need a Mattermost-installation. We know that we'll have to have access to the Postgres database. And we'll have to have access to MinIO. And I believe that's everything. I'm checking my notes. Oh, and we'll need our Zarf file. So first and foremost, let's walk through the documentation and start getting our pieces together. Call this Mattermost operator. Oh, let's go ahead and open from a different window just so we have it. So we have our to-do list of things we want to create. Let's create them one at a time. Grab the Mattermost operator. Let's create a placeholder for the Mattermost installation. We'll say one for the Postgres secret. One for the MinIO secret. And then one for the Zarf package. There, we have all of our YAML bits. Now let's walk down through the documentation to get our form. So we're gonna need this specific operator YAML. We'll go ahead and grab that. That'll have everything we need for the operator. Like so. Let's go ahead and grab our installation YAML. Actually, we'll do the installation YAML last. We need a Postgres secret, and we need a MinIO secret. So we'll come back up to the installation once we have everything else that we need. We'll need a database connection string. We don't need really anything else there. They're all optional. We're just going to go with that. So Postgres secret, database connection string. And we're going to need a Postgres string for this. We'll call this Postgres secret. And then we'll create a connection string, replace the one that's in here. We can actually grab the format for a connection string by decoding this from its from its encoded version. So let's go ahead and decode that so we can get our proper format for a Postgres connection string. Oops, wrong one. Let's remove the new line. So now we have our format for what our connection string needs to look like. We'll grab this. Actually, we don't need to grab it. We can just fill in the blanks from what we need. So we're going to need Postgres / we're going to user. We know our user is Zarf. We have that big long password from earlier that we can grab, I believe, right over here. If we're looking properly. Yep, there it is. Now we have the user / password, not the @ Remember, this is going to be from inside of the Kubernetes database, so we can actually grab our connection right from PgAdmin, which is why we went through and did that earlier. Go ahead and grab our server. Oh, did I not save that? Did I? Oh, good, I did save that. Here we have our @ we have our 5432, we have our database, which I believe was just called, actually we can look at that too, which should just be called Zarf. And we don't need to worry about the connection timeout. It has a default. Oops. I forgot a quote in there somewhere. Oh, there it is, right there. And echo that, flush into base 64. And we have our new fancy string. So that's going to be our database connection string right there in our secret. Of that, we'll have to have our MinIO secret next. Go back to our documentation. We'll need an access key and a secret key. We're just going to call this MinIO secret. And our access key is going to be our username, and our secret key is going to be the password that you created when you create your user. And then our secret key again, make sure you close your quotes. So we have our operator, or sorry, we have our Mattermost operator, our MinIO secret, our PostgreSQL secret. Now we just need our installation. So you'll want to grab this to begin with, and we'll have some things below as far as our different keys go that are in the documentation. So if you look into the full example, you can see here we're going to have a different rule for our ingress because we're going to use traffic instead of a custom ingress. We're going to have external DB credentials. We're going to have our external file store credentials for an S3 bucket. And then we already have our database connection string. And then our secret for our MinIO credentials. These we're not going to do. They're in separate secrets, which is a better practice than what's here. So I'm just going to copy. I'm going to put all this together, and we'll just copy it out to VS Code. All right, so I put all this together. Let's walk through what this looks like. So we have our Mattermost installation. This is from the Mattermost operator CRD that defines how this is laid out. Its kind is Mattermost. It needs a name. It needs a size. Whether ingress is enabled or not. Now remember, our ingress is built in with traffic, but we're not even going to bother with ingress because this is a getting started tutorial, but you're going to need a host name for that as well. We've changed the default class from Nginx to traffic. We set up our MinIO operator file store. So this is the name of the service, the namespace it's in, svc.cluster.local. Again, yours may vary here. Cluster.local is the default for Kubernetes. Our bucket's called Mattermost bucket, and our secret's the MinIO secret, the one that we defined earlier. Our database is external and is laid out in that Postgres secret that is the Postgres URL that we defined earlier. So let's go ahead and put together our Zarf file. And again, I'm going to go off screen, copy paste it down. We'll walk through what each step does. Okay, so here's our full deployment with Mattermost 1.18.1. I put a URL in there and an image from their GitHub account just to make it look nice. The component is Mattermost. It is required because otherwise we're not installing anything. Now I pointed to the Helm. So this is when I was down the Helm route earlier. Off video. I spent a lot of time working down the Helm route just to scrap it. I use Zarf prepare find images from the Helm manifest that was available. That pulled up the Mattermost operator and the Mattermost operator and the Mattermost Enterprise Edition 7.4.0. Now, when you're working with operators, it becomes difficult because the Helm chart is going to specify, for example, Mattermost operator. That operator is going to have its own set of images it needs that won't be found by Zarf prepare find images, that might be embedded in code, it might be configurable, it might be created by a separate secret outside the process. So a lot of work went into finding out which images to use. That might involve getting into source code. That might involve reading documentation. Looking through the documentation for Mattermost, I could not find AirGap instructions for what images you need to deploy. So I actually went through the source code to find out what my options were and did a little bit of trial and error to figure out which ones to use. And then we have the manifest. So we have the one we created for the Mattermost operator, the Mattermost installation itself, and the secrets required for the installation. And that should be everything we need. So let's go ahead and build the Zarf package. So now that we have our Zarf.yaml file, there's one thing we need to do. The default for the Mattermost operator is to pull Mattermost operator latest. We're going to modify the Mattermost operator YAML to remove latest and to put in version 118. So now that we have the Zarf file and the Mattermost operator edited, let's go ahead and create and deploy our package. Okay, so the Mattermost operator has been deployed. We have an installation that should be running, and we can actually check that. You can see here we have our example full. It's doing a container create right now. We'll give it a few seconds. And just like that, it is now running. Now it's not in the ready state yet, but we'll see if we can connect to it once it's in ready state. We're just checking everything here to make sure there's nothing obvious wrong while it's running. It might just be taking a moment to get up and running. All right, looks like everything is up and running now. We're in good shape. Let's try to connect to it. So we don't have a Zarf connect here because the Mattermost operator and the Mattermost installations aren't set up to work with Zarf. So we'll have to use port forward. So to do that, we're going to find the Kubernetes service. You actually already see here, there's 8065 and 8067. I just know from use it's 8065, and also the documentation says localhost 8065. So let's go ahead now and create that port forward. And I'm just looking at the syntax because I don't do this every day. All right. We're going to go, let's go 8888 8065 in the pod. We should be able to find it now. And there we go. Mattermost is now up and running, and you can configure Mattermost consistent with your installation. So with that, if you have any questions, you need to hit me up directly. I'm at JVB in the Kubernetes Slack. I'm available on Twitter at Jason Van Brakel. I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11. Feel free to hit me up then. If you want to hit the Zarf team up, the Zarf channel on the Kubernetes Slack is a great place to find us. Otherwise, you can find us at Defense Unicorns on Twitter. and Defense Unicorns on LinkedIn. With that, thank you all for your time. I hope this is very helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.